this one. Thank you very much, Program Director. To the Chairperson of the African Private Sector Summit, the committee members, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, thank you. That sounds so much better. My name is Tumi Dlamini, and I'm with the African Peer Review Mechanism in Johannesburg. It is an organ of the African Union. And on behalf of the APRM, please allow me to extend my sincere appreciation for this opportunity to come and be with you today, and also to be able to share some of the work that we've been doing at APRM with regards to standardization of corporate governance standards on the continent. So there is a presentation that I've prepared. I think as soon as our IT support is ready to allow me to share, I will share it. But in the meantime, I will continue with the presentation. Okay, I see their thumbs are up. Okay, it's not giving me access to share, please. Oh, there we go. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. So as I have indicated, my presentation will focus on corporate governance. And corporate governance because it is critical to the success of the implementation of the CFTA. We have to ensure that our governance standards, our practices are actually aligned with not only to ensure that we stick to best practices that have been developed, but also to ensure that they are aligned with the African realities on the ground. I have titled this presentation, "The African Principles and Guidelines on Corporate Governance, the Case for a Paradigm Shift in Africa." And really the work has been very much inspired by the resilient private sector, primarily dominated by the SMMEs on the continent. And yet we have these number of codes and of standards of corporate governance which do not align with our realities on the ground. And I think the words of the late Dr. Kofi Annan really capture what we've been trying to do, when he said, "Without the private sector, sustainable development will remain only a distant dream. We're not asking corporations to do something different from their normal business. We're asking them to do their normal business differently." So APRM has conducted over 24 reviews to assess the state of corporate governance on the continent, and out of the 55 countries, only 19 have standards or frameworks in place. And that really speaks to the discussion we also had earlier on around the standardization of the IP policies, where you find that most of the member states have not put in place any frameworks in place. So with regards to corporate governance, we've also found that those corporate governance standards or codes that are in place are actually borrowed from Western and global standards, and which then tend to apply to business environments that exist in those developed countries. And so as a result, you will find that the private sector on the continent, which is dominated by SMEs and the informal sector, find very little relevance to these westernized and global standards. And we've also found that there's many similarities with regards to challenges faced by private sector, including that the lack of finance, inadequate skills, limited growth prospects, therefore, and of course the limited representation of women in the highest echelons of private sector. And often when we speak about corporate governance, SMMEs and the informal sector say the word corporate implies that it applies only to big and incorporated companies and therefore has no relevance for them, which is not what we intend to address. So these are the countries, the 19 countries that have adopted codes of corporate governance, and this, the table also indicates the year that they did, and of course the number of revisions of these corporate governance codes, and you will see that Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa have done the most revisions, followed by Kenya, Tunisia. And in terms of the obstacles we've found to doing business in Africa, this very much is in line with what we found. Oh, I've been asked to slow down for interpretation. We found that it's very much aligned with the findings of the World Bank as well. Electricity and infrastructure rank high up. And I think that came out quite strongly as well in the discussions yesterday. Access to finance, political instability, informal sector, and corruption. So therefore, in our work, we've had to ask ourselves, if we do have corporate governance standards on the continent, which are intended to support the development of private sector, why is it that they are not achieving these? And what is it that we can start to do differently? And hence, the paradigm shift. And I guess the work that we've had to undertake, this slide for me really reflects some of the challenges we encountered in trying to rethink and relearn the manner in which not only do we do business, but the manner in which we plan around our policies and implement our policies. Because for the longest time, we have imported these policies, the rules of engagement of doing business from the Western world into our own countries, and yet it doesn't work. And so in doing our work, I guess Dr. Bako said yesterday, he had to learn and unlearn and then relearn. So that's the process we've also undertaken, and we've had to say to the loud noises and publications who have defined Africa that we can define Africa for ourselves. And so the paradigm shift, therefore, around corporate governance standards has been around, we've had to ask very important and pertinent questions, which is, what are the characteristics of the private sector in Africa? What should be the expected conduct and governance policies that regulate an enterprise in a developing economy, not the OECD standards? What's the role of the business enterprise in Africa and in a developing economy? And how should corporate governance influence private sector development? And as corporate governance standards stand at the moment, do they actually influence and affect private sector development? And in responding to these questions, we've determined that there's an urgent need to both entrench best practice that is found in the world, but at the same time, therefore, to adopt a paradigm shift that embraces a corporate governance that is premised on the philosophy of our shared values in Africa. And therefore, these standards address the development and empowerment of SMMEs, the informal sector, and family-owned businesses. They entrench governance practices that promote transparency, accountability, and they also confirm the fundamental role of business, which is to make a positive contribution to development. Therefore, these principles take into account all of these practices that have been developed outside of Africa, but we need to ensure that they are therefore underpinned by values that promote dignity, respect, co-responsibility, and that is the philosophy of the manner in which we live our lives in Africa. And so I will present now what are the 7 principles that we believe capture the essence of what we're trying to achieve in terms of private sector development. So as I mentioned, rather than focusing exclusively on shareholder returns and protection of the investor we must ensure that our corporate governance guidelines also focus and are based on socio-economic development as engraved in the Africa We Want Agenda 2063, and also address the development and enhancement of SMMEs and the informal sector. So these are the 7 principles that we believe in our work really capture the essence of what private sector practice should reflect. The first one is an effective business organization is guided by a shared purpose, ensuring that its operating strategy, values, mission, and organizational culture add value to society and respects the diverse interests of people where it operates. This is critical because for every African and wherever we find ourselves, whether we are natural human beings, meaning us, or juristic persons that operate on the continent, fundamentally, our obligation is to ensure that we add value to society. And that goes beyond us as myself as a natural person, but also to juristic persons. Number 2, an effective business organization is guided by a very clear governance framework which speaks to issues such as accountability, transparency, and disclosure. Number 3, an effective business organization develops and promotes authentic and inclusive leadership and decision-making processes committing to rational and ethical business practices. Again, you find the issue of leadership developed in most of the codes. However, the practice of leadership is underpinned by values, and unless we can identify our own African values and ensure that these African values are therefore reflected in the standards that we've set for ourselves, those leadership structures will not speak to us as Africans unless we go back to who we are and our values as a people. An effective business organization promotes effective stakeholder relationships that are aligned to the company's purpose and is responsible for overseeing meaningful engagement with stakeholders, including workforce, and taking into account their views. Business organizations should respect human rights wherever they operate and whatever their size or industry. And this, of course, speaks to a number of issues that we have encountered on the continent with regards to multinationals and some of the listed firms on the continent. And we believe that it's a fundamental business principle to observe human rights. And you would not ordinarily find these in European kind of statutes and governance practices. Number 6, organizations should consider the environmental impact of their operations, including climate change, and there is no doubt on this. Our continent of Africa is very much endowed with some of the best natural resources in the world, and unless we can find a way to ensure that businesses operating in Africa, whether big, listed or small, observe and consider their environmental impact, but not only that, and therefore also report on the impacts of their businesses and make these reports public. And then the last one, which by no doubt COVID has really exposed to all of us in Africa, in our countries and the world over, technology, innovation and adaptability. That business organizations should ensure their sustainability by investing and utilizing technology that supports its growth and the achievement of corporate strategies. So whilst these principles, there are 7 in total, they are supported by a number of guidelines that relate to the kind of business that we're talking about. So multinational and listed firms will have their own guidelines, unlisted firms similarly, SMEs similarly, the informal sector. And when we talk about SMEs and informal sector, the essence of the principles of corporate governance are around empowerment, are around building the resilience and the competitiveness of these companies. So I will not go into detail, but this really explains what we mean by each of the principles, and just save to reiterate that consistent with Agenda 2063, businesses, whether local or foreign, should contribute to Africa's sustainable development by reinvesting in local communities. and in turn, they're profitably rewarded for the value that they create to society. So I mentioned that the guidelines then align with each of the business sectors, whether we're talking about multinationals or SMEs, and these are some of the key features when it comes to multinationals and large companies. So for instance, we are proposing that each large multinational and listed firm must put in place a public policy and sustainability subcommittee, and that each business must commit to skills development, to a policy on preferential local procurement from local SMEs, from entrepreneurs, and from women-owned businesses. So therefore, they must buy goods and services from local suppliers. And of course, they must adopt an ethics and integrity subcommittee. Racial, gender, ethnic and cultural and local diversity must be embraced at board level, executive, senior, middle and junior management. And the recruitment of local staff by listed firms and multinationals should be key. And these multinationals and listed firms must report on all of these, on all of these obligations through the public policy subcommittee. And of course, the skills development remains key. With regards to SMEs, very quickly, we recognize that SMEs, we cannot treat them all the same. You have startup SMEs, we have medium-sized enterprises. And with regard to each of them, we must be able to put in place, working with local governments, training and skills, initiatives, mentorships, strategy planning, business accounts, and with regards to family-owned businesses, some of the key highlights are around the succession planning, the engagement and communication with external stakeholders when you are a family-owned business, clear business structures and hierarchy, human resources, and the introduction of independent directors, of course, depending on the size of a family-owned business. And in closing, I must say that COVID-19 and the lockdown measures and all of the restraints that have come with lockdown have really gone to demonstrate the level at which the private sector can actually collaborate and cooperate with government. Because in most of our countries, we have seen, for instance, in Kenya, the National Business Compact Coalition, in Morocco, Senegal, Egypt, commercial banks have responded by issuing soft loans that are targeting SMEs. And we recognize that these have been made possible, or they have been necessitated through how COVID-19 has affected the economies. However, it has also demonstrated that private sector commitment to socioeconomic issues must be sustained beyond COVID-19. And businesses must become accelerators of positive social and economic outcomes at the local level. With regards to the African Continental Free Trade Area, it is obviously a game changer, as we have been talking, and we're all aware and acknowledge this. However, the implementation of these principles by member states will enhance the harmonization and standardization of business regulations and governance processes. And we believe that this is a critical key success factor for the CFTA. And so the development and the implementation of African principles on corporate governance will greatly contribute towards the harmonization and enhancement of the coherence of corporate governance practices. And furthermore, given that the private sector is so dominated by SMEs, the greater need to support SMEs must feature strongly in the principles. So we, as APRM, have engaged and consulted with a number of the member states in coming up with these principles. And we will continue to sensitize, and we hope that by next year in January or February, the principles will be adopted, but however, at a continental level. But that is just the beginning of the work, because then at a regional and local and national level, they then need to be domesticated to ensure that they speak to the realities on the ground for each nation. And that's where the large work really begins. I thank you very much for your time.
good. Okay. Can come through and do your session. Give him a round of applause.
Good afternoon, all. I'm sure all of you are tired after a nice lunch. I'm going to be talking about maybe not the very bright side as a topic. It will be a little bit not the very rosy topic, but we have to face it. We have to face the problems. Yesterday we talked about the infrastructure, and I meant by the word infrastructure here, as was discussed yesterday by others, the infrastructure of people. In order to drive a fancy car, you have to have a road. And so we have to do some rehabilitation to our weaknesses in the society. If you rely on government, on my experience for the past 4 decades or so, it is a very slow process. And by changing political, crew, you get the problem even getting bigger and bigger. So the only way to do a few things to fulfill your dreams that we've been talking about from yesterday and today, we need, as I said, to have the understanding of how can we execute all these nice goals that we are identifying during this event. And that's my opinion. When I met Mr. Wendell in Cairo, we were talking about the topic of social solidarity, prosperity, and security of financial position of people of Africa. We see a lot of good sides of the society. We are in a fancy hotel, fancy cars, but that's not really a reflection of what we have in reality. We have issues. It's not only in Africa, but we need to move on and make all the dreams or maybe the goals that we have identified to be reality. So one of the things that I maybe going to be talking about, I don't know if I can control from here or how we control it. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so my topic, as I mentioned, is more into how can we develop that strategy, and I'm going to propose something in my area of housing and sheltering, not only homeless people, which is we have a lot of it even in Ghana, but also we need to look at the sector or category of people. Although they have houses, but not the house that you live in as a typical middle class or higher class citizen. And to me, these are also categorized as homeless, although they have a home, but not a decent home. So we have to make the society as a whole with a minimum decency in their living. Don't expect anybody to move and prosper and work if they have miserable housing. So that's an issue that we need to discuss, and I have proposition for that I have actually made this experiment several times. One of them was in Angola, maybe 25 or 20 years ago, and also in Egypt. And it is just a protocol that I'm proposing to you, and that the reason I'm putting this, because as a private sector, you have obligations. You need to make a profit, and the profit is going to go back to people through taxes, but also you have obligations. So I'm asking all of you to put hand in hand to solve those issues and make all the target goals that we discussed in reality, as long as you have the people who are feeling the pride and the decency in their living. And that's very, very critical. You can do whatever you want to do. You're going to see corruption everywhere. It's not only corruption because people were born, got born, made of all born as devils. That's not true. But also does not mean that everybody who's making a wrongdoing like corruption and bribery and stuff means that he or she is poor. He can be rich and still he can be in a bad manner. But usually the major issue is always if you are in need, you can do anything, most of the people. So as I said, as long as you wanted to having the Africa that we have all wanted to be, we need to fix those issues as soon as possible. We cannot just deny the fact that this is happening. So, can you move the? It'll be a bit difficult to not to control the slides. They told me that they are using the, okay, can you go next? Okay, may I just ask the IT, can you just put the presentation without Zoom, or you have to do Zoom or online? Can you just play the presentation as is? You can? No? Okay. Fine. So one of the issues, as I said, we did not discuss. We talked about future and stuff, but also future dependent on present. And the issue of homeless, as I said, I always put them together, homeless and indecent housing. They are all, to me, the same. And so let's just talk about it in a practical way. And we're talking about, I can't even read what I want to read, so if you don't mind, I will go up to see. So we have huge amount of people, especially children, because that's your assets, or our assets. Children are the assets of anything you want to do. And we are lucky enough that the African generation right now, the majority are less than 30 years old. If you look at Europe and stuff, that's the old continent. We are a little bit different. So we have the fuel, we have the human resources that we need to really use them, but we want to make sure that they are in a good shape. Can you go to the next slide and play the movie, please? Hello? Can you interfere? This is just, I brought this slide because I was invited by the German Chamber of Commerce, actually, and the GIZ, to put an example for other people to implement for the homeless issue. And if you don't get all the information from that session, you can visit this website, and that presentation is already with the event, so you can do that. And so this is a model in Egypt that has been done through GIZ. Next. Next. So, again, I don't want to read what I said, but the whole idea is how can we solve this problem? So you have many, many folds. If I talk about the issue about homeless, then we have a bigger problem, because homelessness is not just a problem of not to have a house. You can see the people in the street, the children in the streets, you have the beggars in the street, you have nothing in their life. And at the end of the day, they go back under a bridge or somewhere in a corner and sleeps and be abused by many. And we're not talking about few children. The statistics that I have seen from different websites, decent websites, we're going, even an example in Ghana only is 100,000 homeless people. That's according to a United Nations report. This number is multiplied by 2 if you go to Nigeria. We're talking about a wealthy and a higher economy country, but still, the more you get into metropolitan areas, the more you get homelessness. And so we have over 200,000 people also in Nigeria, according to the reports. So the problem when you talk about a homeless, you have to treat the problem not just for providing housing, but you need to look at the psychological part, the mental health part, the social part, and how you bring them back to be productive generation. So that's a very important thing. When I was asked maybe 10 years ago or so by the minister of actually the ministry in Egypt called Social Solidarity, I don't think it's still there anymore for some reason. And that minister, I was coming to help him in remote sensing for irrigation in the deserts. And when I talked to him, he listened to me for half an hour about the technology of remote sensing. That's my expertise in that area. And he said, no, I don't want that help. I want you to solve a homeless problem. I said, why me? And I remember that, an experience in Angola, as I said, 20 years ago, with a colleague of mine who's African American. He was professor in MIT. And I helped him to do the same thing in Angola in a smaller scale. So the whole idea, as I said, we establish a team that we have a medical team and also social team. And then we sought the help of the private sector. That's including businesses and also other and NGOs. And the whole idea is, first of all, you have to go through phases. Can you go quickly? It's a bit difficult to continue, but here's just an evidence. This is a short movie. You can just play a few things just to waken up everybody that we have this problem. Can you play it? Can you go back and play the movie, please? You have it in the folder too. I'm sorry. I had a good presentation, but I'm not. I have no control. Okay. So I can do that. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It will be
Great.
better for you.
Oh, much better. Thank you very much. Okay, great. So am I connected or no?
You're still connected.
Okay, great.
So they'll
But-
follow.
But this is a different slides than,
This is.
okay, so I'm here.
You hear you. Okay. Introduction. You finished.
I'm here.
Here.
After I finish this will be working. This is.
Yeah, the follow. It's a big picture. And then you come back to this.
So Anyway, while we're watching this, I'm just saying we know we cannot avoid that issue. It is happening. I think I will pass that. It's not going to work that way. So it's just, no, it's okay. I'll just use my presentation. Is that now it's connected? Anyway, can you that's enough for the video, if you don't mind. Sam, can you help? I just wanted, I will stop that thing and I will use this. They said I can use that.
Is it playing from here or from there? Technical team, are we controlling from here or the back? From here? Go on here. Let's see. No. It's not controlling here. Because what we're seeing here is not.
Okay, you want to take it? You have it there. So anyway, I will just talk without the presentation slides. So the whole idea, I'm saying that we need to work in several phases. So the model is, first of all, we have to make distribution. We have or preparation first to know exactly where are the spots where homeless children or homeless people are. And then, you know, we need also to select the sites where we can build a new society for those people to be productive in their lives. But you can't just do isolation, because then they will feel like they are criminals. You're trying to get them in a prison. They're not going to accept that. So what the model says that will be volunteers from the same country. I'm not asking for volunteers coming from US or somebody, but I need volunteers from universities, from people who are not employed. When I say volunteers, does not mean that they're not going to be paid, but they're not going to be paid, you know, with a contract and so forth. So the volunteers, sometimes the definition, people, they think is only free. So what I'm saying is, so we need first of all to make that preparation in the beginning, to know where is the problems and where is the large majority of concentration of homelessness or homeless population, say, in Accra. And by identifying the ages and where they came from and so forth, then you will have background information.
Just run it yourself.
It will work?
No. They'll just try and follow you.
Okay.
I don't know where you are now, but
I have no clue. Okay. Oh, that's fine. So anyway, so after you make that distribution, as I said, the children are going to go through a process of classification to look at the background and the mental health issues and so forth. And then they will be put in the first phase of rehabilitation. And then, as I said, with the help of the government, NGOs, and the private sector and the community, they will select different areas to make those new communities. And as I said, you need to merge between the homeless that you wanted to rehabilitate and make that partnership with the society itself. And that works very well, even in the US. So we got the volunteers, and those volunteers also, most of the time, they are young people, they don't have jobs or steady income. So we have to give them also benefit. And they have to be willing to work with those people and actually to live with them in the new community. So they don't feel, as I said, the children or the homeless people, that they are punished twice. And then through the government help and NGOs and others, we select areas. You know, I had actually a design for how many hectares that needs for each population or number of homeless people, where you actually start making that community. There is some restrictions on that. You don't want them to be very close to the city where they, they lived before. Otherwise, they're going to stay few hours and then you go back to the same street, because some of them are using drugs or being abused by others and so forth. So you're not going to solve the problem. So you don't want them to be totally remote in some other area, but you need to change. So the people in, say, I don't know, all the cities in Ghana, for example, so the one you collected from, say, Accra metropolitan area, you bring them to another, say, second largest city, whatever the name is, away from that. And the people there, you bring them all the way here. So they don't know exactly how to get back to the bad areas and bad spots. And that's, in the same time, use some contractors that will be willing to not only to build the community, but they need also, as a condition, to get those people who are already in stage 2 after rehabilitation to work for the contractor. So the contract is not only financial contract, but also social contract. So anybody going to bid for the job will be required, say, for example, at least 20 or 10 homeless people to be trained and work for a period of time. And the very end, to get the last payment of the contract, they have to give a proof, or we certify those people to be electricians, to be plumbers, and so forth. Otherwise, it will be a big cut from the contract. So that will motivate or will push the contractor to work on that task. It's part of the contract. Like building the house, we are building also people. So not every contractor will be happy to do that, but there's too many of them I've seen in former or past experience in other projects that will be willing to do so for PR issues, maybe just for public relation issues. So by this time, you get those people part of the team that building their own communities. They feel the sense of belongings. It is not somebody just fed them, fed, and they don't have value for it. They actually worked, they are earning money, they are trained. By the end of the time, we have also parallel activities for rehabilitation if they are in drugs and they have any mental issues. So the categories, you need to get multi-disciplinary team. It's not only, as I said, engineers or financier, but I need also a medical crew, the sociologists, and other type of team that will be involved. Once we finish the community will have also stages of production. So, for example, if we are close to a farming area, then the focus will be in agriculture. And we're not going to give them very hard time because we understand the background. They used to be in the streets using drugs. They are sleeping in anywhere. There's no really value of life for them. So you don't need to put them under huge pressure. Otherwise, they're going to go back. They don't like it anymore. So the issue is to try to find or select work for them that they own with partnership of the volunteers who are going to live in the same community as mentors and will be paid. In fact, what I did before is I give, say, for example, a young man who is acting as a mentor, a house. maybe 50 square meters or 60 square meters. In the contract for this house, if he stays for 4 years, he has this house forever. If he breaks that thing and he leaves, say less than 4 years, he gives back the house to the community. And many of them, they already lived for 10, 15 years now. They like what they do. And again, so for example, I give you an example for agricultural communities close to the farms. So we selected some few very expensive vegetation like asparagus, cherry tomatoes. The hotels, they like those things, and they actually import it from outside. Very easy to grow, and the revenue is very high, and the work is a little, because these are stages of rehabilitations. In areas where they have fishery or have things like that, then we ask some of the private sectors to start doing some small factories where they train also the people, and also they make money because it's cheaper labor. The people, they live in the same area, and then also the private sector also have benefit of that, and also the involvement of the government as their responsibility after all as a government, that they also give incentives to all the private sector who are doing that, tax-wise, you know, export fee, custom tariff, and so forth. So this has to be also part of it from the government point of view, needs to be involved 100%, but not to control the issues. My experience that if the government goes and control that project, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry to say that. Not only in Africa, but even in the US. It's much better to be NGOs, private sector, and we care about ourselves. We are the people. We are the people, not the government is the people. We are the people. So there's no way that somebody employed sitting in a desk will think about the kids in the street. But you're going to feel for that person. And you know that this is not just a charity. Don't make all this agenda of greater Africa without solving your problem. And I was talking to Sam about if I am sick and he gave me the best beautiful juice in the world, I don't want to even taste it. But if I'm healthy, even if you give me salt water, I'm going to drink. So first, the body of Africa has to be cured. I'm not saying suddenly, but if you don't care and have that social solidarity between all of us, it's not going to happen. We're going to dream. And I want all the private industry to make use of this. I always point that direction. I don't know why, for the $82 trillion assets of Africa. But we need to be healthy enough to make it happen. And as I said, you know, we are capable. That project is not expensive project at all. I have too many systems, and unfortunately I don't have. I had a very good presentation, I think, to show you examples. So there is a lot of housing technologies now. You can do it in no time. We can produce at least one house per day. So if we have 100 of them, I'm not going to do it 100 years. It will be 6 or 10 crews. In 10 days, I'm done. I'm not going to wait. And very affordable. And then we are, you know, when you do those communities, you have to think about one important thing. You don't take those children and those people who really suffered for no reason being suffering, and then you put them isolated. They feel less. The dignity going to be low. They're going to be, you know, always envy with other people. They want to go and steal and fight. No, take that community and make it even better. Go and try to get the water and make it, you know, like falls. And what are you going to do? Instead of having a small lake, make it with some falls, some fountains. Try to get them the beauty of life. In fact, my always objective that to get the people from the city to come to spend weekend at those facilities. Look at the pride now, the feeling. They are feeling that, okay, we paid for a mistake we never done, but now we are rewarded by the community. So we love the community. We're not going to hurt the community. We're going to help the businesses. And again, I'm sorry, I know it's touchy issue, but it's a reality. And without waking up, with this giant waking up, and I like that, but I don't think Africa is asleep. Africa is very vibrant. Okay, it's a nice slogan, but maybe we're asleep, or they call us sleep, but you don't know how much we have inside. The minute we're going to wake up, we're going to make an earthquake. We're not going to be easy. So they have to watch for Africa. But we also have duties to prepare our openings to the world. We need Africa to be healthy. We need Africa to be not just rich, but rich by knowledge, by information, by our young generation. Because these are, you always hear that word sustainability. And people, I mean, I go to in different places, and they say, what is sustainability? Because everybody want to use the word sustainability. And sustainability in a very simple meaning for it. Not to be selfish. Think about your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and everybody else. When you use your water, use your money, use education, always think about other people. It's not because I have this bottle, I'm going to drink half of it, I'm going to throw it away. No, when I do that, I carry it, I go to my room. I never leave it in your table. I take it in my pocket. At least myself, I do one thing at least at a time. I know you don't have that shortage in water, but I'm giving you an example. The sustainability meaning that we have to think about all generations to come in Africa. So I don't want to take the whole time for this, and I like, when I talk about Africa, you don't know how much I feel now, goosebumps in my body. I feel it inside me. But as I said, I don't want that event to be just talking and we leave. We need to have action items. We need somebody to take that position. Someone, our committee, task force, and get some benefit out of this. Otherwise, don't do the third one. The third one would be the results and the fruits of the second one. That's if you want to be sustainable. Think about what we did here, why I'm coming all the way, hours and hours in an airplane. To do what? I have to have that feeling that when I go home, I feel I did some contribution. And I'm willing to do more. It's not just enough as one trip, but give me the appetite to do more and more. So I think I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about all of us. So we need all of us to have hand in hand, and we have a mission. We really care, and we're going to have that action item or task force or ad hoc committee to try to see who is interested to really continue and do. Can we follow up in things that we have discussed? And I was very impressed, and I'm telling you that from my heart. I'm very impressed with the scholars and the people who were either in the room or in the Zoom or in the podium here. I mean, really, and I talked to Wendell about it. It's just too much. Really. I've been in conferences, I don't know, maybe 1,000 times, but this is where I see the brains. Right, Africa? Yeah, but here's the best ever. I learned myself a lot. And I say that, actually, I was talking to my wife last night. I told her, oh, I'm impressed. I have been in many, many, many conferences. But the way the discussion, the action, the vibrant, I can feel it, even from the audience. When the audience were open to talk and participate, everybody coming with something new. Trust me. We are the best. And we're not going to be less than the best. So, again, I will have the event management to have that PowerPoint, if possible, a PDF, and send it to anybody who's interested. And I thank you for that. Thank you very much. So we have different, in the sustainability and social solidarity, we have actually a few other aspects. This is just one aspect, and I just picked up that issue about homelessness. But also, as I said, this also goes for low-income housing and all these issues related to it. I have with me, I'm hoping that they are online. I go back to you. Can you ask them if we have few scholars. Okay. Sure. So in fact, I tried to look at different aspects that we can discuss that related to the sustainability of African economy, social issues, and those volunteers that I recruited, for some reason, most of them are from North Africa. And actually, I want to bring that issue again. In the morning, I felt discriminated. I did. When we say, I'm black, I'm good. I'm African. Don't discriminate me. Yeah, don't say that. We are African. I cannot see if I'm black and white when I'm talking to you. I only see you. You see me. So try it yourself. I'm old, but I feel young inside me. Because I don't see myself. Inside me, what is inside me. So the same thing, please. I love it, but we are not. We don't look at the color because we are African. We don't care. Degradation of color is a rainbow. You know, you go to Egypt, all the way north, you find them a little bit white. You go down a little bit, in Upper Egypt, darker a little bit. In Asyut, Sohaj, you go Komombo, African, black. Who is looking, at least in Egypt, I'm very proud of that. Nobody say you're black, you're Egyptian. You cannot even think about it. I've never been grown to say he is what? He's Egyptian, but so happened that he's from this part or this part. So again, I didn't mean it like, I was upset, but I want you to don't, like Professor Bahiri from Morocco, when I told him that I need him in this event, and he was not, health-wise was not in a good shape, but he said, I'm here. I tried actually to contact some other countries in Africa, but I get not no response. Then I got from Morocco about 4 or 5 they want to help. Some of them are Sweden, some of them, to give an example, like all of us who are successful, and we can do a lot, and we need all Africans to be successful. When you see people like in the US, they say, okay, made in USA. We want to also put a slogan to say made in Africa. Why you are not carrying that slogan by the private sector? Why not to be the hashtag, starting today, made in Africa? Just make the kids in the streets, make the marketing for your product and say, I'm proud, it's made in Africa. Not made in Nigeria, not made in Ghana, it's made in Africa. Doesn't really matter where. But that's what I'm saying is the very small things that can make a big difference in the perception. There's nobody. So anyway, I think maybe that's good luck for all of you. So I don't have to spoil your afternoon. Yeah, I can ask question. I'll be more than happy to entertain any question. Sure.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and I think what you've touched is very important. If I stand to be correct, but countries such as Scandinavian countries, that's Norway, Norway, Finland, and so forth, they have social protection policies that actually pay, if I would say that in their manifesto, it's something that is very heavy for any politician. It's a principle of life, although I'm also Christian, I believe that social justice is very important. And as we talk about awakening, the giant sustainable economies in Africa, the issue you've spoken about you know, taking care of homeless. We're talking about more of, you know, having decent house for people. It's something that is very important. It has to be looked as, it has to be looked in a way that we've got a responsibility to look after those who are less fortunate. The more you get money, invest back to that community, because even today they might not make it. When you are gone, they will be able to also arise and continue. I stayed in Norway for some time, and that's what I learned from them. The public good, it's something that everybody respects. So is there any model that, you know, since you've started with this framework, is something I think one has to look at and try to sell out, because there is a profit if private sector come in. South Africa have tried by having low, if I would say low, how do we call it again? The low income houses, but somehow they're not that very decent if you look at it. Which is, I mean, I think it was just, I stand to be corrected, but I think that was not the vision, what they wanted, but it was an opportunity for private sector to be on board, generate money, but it was substandard, right? So the moment there is an opportunity for economy, but how do we again protect, respect the human being when we put in, I mean, if we have projects that are like housing, and then as well for in some countries where they have to pay 10%, any business has to have 10% of their profit that needs to be invested in community projects. Those are certain kind of practices are picked up in different countries that helps in terms of sustainable economy and sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We actually touched a very critical issue. But I just want to open one subject. When you are in business, like a businessman or businesswoman, always it is profit-oriented. If you only restrict them, I mean, they have already government fees, they have taxes and stuff, so you will have overwhelming restrictions on spending the money for other avenues. So I think it's, again, the obligation, the social obligation, the national obligations that comes not for every company, but you may actually do that through benefit that indirect. As I mentioned, if you have these small communities, I call them that time in Egypt the sun cities. They are all circles, and they have nice entertainment in the middle, and they have shops, and they have areas where they have some good gardens and so forth. So the decency on living is not expensive. I remember I was a senior advisor to Minister of Housing, only for a short period in Egypt. And I met with the minister, and I told him, I really don't like the way that they do social housing. They look boxes, they are ugly, very cheap, and always you have the segregation and the feeling of being less. And I said, what is the big difference of having a good architect for the same money to do the same house? And then I added more, because in Egypt there is a big gap between poor and rich too. So I said, why they always hear about gated community by millions and millions? I said, why not to have a big, nice fence and a good company, not very expensive, security. It has really no meaning, but at least the feeling, they are not less, they are gated community, they have, so, and we looked at, and I gave him one model, so he asked me to, like a homework, go and give me the difference. And the difference was, by square meter at the very end of the day, was about maybe 6 pounds, 30 cents. So can you see the difference between, you know, just having blocks? That's what I'm saying. Government, I'm not against government, but again, government is not going to think the way you think. Because once you are in the government and that political thing, you're not really feeling the streets anymore. When you go to the street, the police can open the traffic lights, and life is good. And I forgot that I was one day in a slum. But us, rich or not rich, still we drive cars or get, buses and trains, and we go on lines and queues, and we are always, seeing things in front of us. So we cannot forget. Nobody gonna turn the red light to be green because, I'm official going through this street for security issues. So I think it is a social obligations, but also there's always the rule of the stick and the carrot. So sometimes also you can get that benefit to the private industry to attract them to do that, as I mentioned, and that I've seen it. Because they are not very expensive, and the government is paying a bit contribution, so in the labor fees. And the taxes, they have a certain taxes called social taxes or something. They cut it totally zero. It's like, I think, 6% for the factories, small factories that they were surrounding the community. So now the people say want to do more and more. In fact, myself, I didn't want a big, giant corporation to come. I want small businesses too, so I can help the new generation also to do things. But also there is some environmental requirements, there is some few things, because I want those people to come and appreciate that the community cares about them. Trust me. If you don't do this, you're going to have an issue in your society. You're going to find people criminals, you're going to find beggars, you're going to find... I don't see when I come from the airport and begging. Same thing in New York we have. In California we have. But as I said, they have better opportunity because I believe in California, they wanted that. Because they can go welfare and they can get $800 a week or so. So they have other ways of doing it. But here, when they are in need, you do a lot of bad things. And so what I'm saying is, why not to fix it now and not to wait? The more you're going to wait, the more problems you're gonna get. So, thank you for your question. Thank you. Yes.
Hello? Oh, it's working. Thank you for the presentation. I mean, you mentioned something along the lines of working with volunteers to be able to get a particular data. I was hoping if you could touch a bit more on that.
Can you repeat?
You talked about working with volunteers. I mean, young
Yes.
volunteers, university students,
Yes.
and stuff like that for the kind of work that you're doing. I would wish if you could talk about it a little bit more in terms of the scope. What countries are you looking at? Because we come from different countries and we're in here. And what is the result? What are you hoping to achieve with that? And if anybody can help, how can we help?
Okay. Thank you. I mean, this is one issue that in US or in Europe, the word volunteer, I think people understand the word volunteer. So always when it comes to Egypt or in Africa or so, volunteers mean you can just do it free of charge and you'll be homeless one day. You have no income. So it's not really the case. The case of a volunteer that you are an engineer, for example. But he said, you know what? I don't want engineering now. I'm going to help people. I'm going to take 1 year of my life to help those people. I'm not going to get the salary of $70,000 a year. I'm going to do it maybe $10,000 a year. Just something to get me by, to have some food and some shelter. But I want to give back to the society. In the beginning, when I did that in Egypt, people say, they're volunteers. Why are they asking money? I said, no, you misunderstood the whole thing. Those people, they have to live too. They have to eat. So volunteering means that I am, even a medical doctor, I'm coming. I mean, you can make huge amount of money if you just practice. But no, I'm coming to the children. I'm not making money out of them. All what I want is decency. I need people to appreciate me and the self-esteem at the end of the day. So you need to define it. If you want to change that word volunteer to people to understand, please change it. Because they may be misunderstood in the society. So those people, whatever you want to call them, angels, why not? We say we need some few angels in different disciplines, right? Medical angels and stuff, and became a word. Why they use blue angels, for business, and you know that terminology in financing, the blue angels. They're not at all angels, I know them, but they call them blue angels, right? So we're going to say that we have, a medical angel, and we need and that will be the advertisement. You know, I like volunteers, but I'll tell you something, as African, I don't like this Peace Corps and everybody writing in their resume, always has to be white, American, or European, coming to help the poor, uneducated African. I'm sorry to say that. I don't like it. We have enough human resources. I have seen here bright girls and young men and ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you again, I'm going to repeat it many, many times in different conferences. I'm very impressed with everybody. So why am I waiting for somebody to come to tell me I'm going to help the poor African? We are not poor African. We have it. We can help each other. You can understand the language and the feeling and the food when you sit. I don't understand it, even if I'm in another region. But now you are in Africa. And as I said, sometimes my target always for volunteers are those in the young age that still finding a job. So usually, you know, you take 2-3 years until you have a decent salary. I pick those. And they are practicing. I'm not taking them to ruin their life. I'm taking them to be sociologists. I want this guy to be psychiatric, right? He takes 7 years for internship. I'm taking him. And this is the best sample he will ever, or she will ever have. All the problems in the world. And if you graduate from that, you're going to be the best doctor. So I get engineers who are just young, cannot find a job. He still has an income, and I'm giving incentives. I'm telling you, the houses that I do, and I have done, very inexpensive. I'm talking about, I don't have to say numbers, very inexpensive, but decent. So the attraction is, you're young, you want to get married, you will have like 2-bedroom, beautiful, looks great, free of charge. The condition is, if you continue with me, that's forever your house. If you don't, we're going to cut it, and then, you know, we can replace it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a question for Prof?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. It's the last one because we have to move.
Thank you, Prof, for that great insight and presentation. You were talking about what kind of models are on the continent as far as housing is concerned. And from your presentation, one of the key take-homes and which I could relate with is that a home is not just the house where one goes to sleep, but it is a dwelling. But this dwelling, what surrounds it? And then I was trying to relate it to a model that we are trying to work with back in Uganda and also expand in East African region, whereby affordable housing or affordable homes means not only where one goes to sleep, but also the ecosystem. It should be in kind of a value chain, whereby there should be amenities, say a school, a hospital, there should be a market, and this shouldn't be so costly because what initially we were considering as affordable is $150,000, but that is off the roof. That is a lifetime saving for somebody who's going to live up to 75, for example. So what we're doing right now, and we also had a conversation with, I met him in this conference, Morris, but somehow we had a conversation and we already crafting out a project for Ghana for affordable housing, whereby I've given them a condition that if we are going to work with them for affordable housing, they should have a social aspect attached to it. One, youth should be included, then the women, then there should be jobs. So the aspect of we entrepreneurs or private sector, just look at money, profits, and we are gone. At times, we Africans are changing that we want it to have a trickle-down effect. So how are we doing it? Through incremental housing model.
Right.
How much are you able to afford? Can you afford a piece of land? Then can we put a foundation? Can we raise the walls? Can we put a roof? Can we create an ecosystem around? This we are doing in the East African region. He connected me just the last one day to some people in this country. We're already conversing about affordable housing for Ghanaians.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, unfortunately, as I said, I spend at least 50 hours or maybe 40 hours to make my presentation with movies and models and communities and the planning for that model. But unfortunately, I could not show. But I'll give you one example. I just did that maybe a year ago in a very desert area, Sahara area in Egypt. It's called the New Valley. It's the western Sahara of Egypt. And so I know the governor approached me and he said his governorate, just governorate, is 48% of the area of Egypt and no population. And he said, I need just to, use this land, 48% of our country. So I went and I said, I'm not going to build houses. I'm going to build communities. So building a house for somebody who has no job, I'm creating a monastery. So what I did, they have groundwater. So first of all, I trained the people. I got them from mid school. It's actually called technical school. So I asked him to get me every day one bus, 50 people, and the government will pay 50 pounds that time, for them to come. So everybody came, and I selected few of them to continue in building, because that's their specialty. So they are taking credit hours at the same time they are working. And we did that in 11 days, the first model. And that was a 3-bedroom, 1 kitchen, and I had to look at the social side for Bedouins. So they cannot mix between men and women and so forth. So I have to look at the architecture issue. So there is one guest room, that you call it. So if there's ladies, will be in that, not men, and then the other way around. The surface has to be a certain way. I did the old, design for buildings, which is you have a courtyard, right? And so the rooms are there, circulation of the air. In the middle, the water, actually there is a small fountain. It didn't cost me nothing. It's recycled to the kitchen and come back. And then I have 8 by 8. The land is free. I have, as I said, 48% of the country in that governorate. So I had 8 meter by 8 meter where I have, a rabbit, closure, and then I have some other things for them, for the goats and stuff. And then we did intense small tanks for tilapia fish farming, small one, that generates about 2,000 pounds, which is a good amount of money for a family per month. And then next to it, there is a charity foundation that they have 2,000 cows, for the people. So I'm getting all the sewage coming, from the animals, and I have a biogas tank, small one, for that house, and it's working right now as we speak. So we take that. They have biogas free of charge. The company get that because it's different stove, and so gas is free. They are working on that farm next door to them, walking distance. And they are generating from the fish, and they are eating all months. In the desert, they never seen fish. Now they are selling fish. And they have chicken and other things. And from the biogas, that's why they take care of the tank very well, generating for 1 liter, 100 pounds. That you didn't even get before, every 2 weeks. And has no smell. So suddenly, you get an income. People used to be like the total income of the whole month, maybe 300 pounds, now about 3,000 pounds or 5,000. So they are working. You know, the other model I went with the governor, I was so very sad because they have, that's government mentality. They have 2-bedroom. And I said, how can you live in 2-bedroom? Okay, husband and a wife. And now a girl is 16 and the boy is 18. How are you going to let them together? How the lady or the girl going to change? She has to be out of the room. They don't think about even the decency. They will never do that in their houses. But I said, no, I'm not accepting that. So at least 3-bedroom. So the girls can be in one place, they can do whatever they want. Boys in one place, mom and dad is there, and they have their kitchen, they have decent things. And again, as I said, you're talking about prices, is not more than $3,000 or even less. The whole thing. 3,000 plus this house is a money maker. The more you use, you know, gas, the more you sell, and gas is free, right? Solar, yeah, sun, there's no rain. Okay, so we're using that advantage. He can sell to the next neighbor company, right? And he's taken that by installments for 30 years. So if it's, even if it's like 60,000 pounds, which is about $4,000 in 60 years, you know, 2 tanks selling, that will do the payment. There is nothing. They're feeling happy. They are replicating that. And then he wanted to do every 100 meters. I said, no. Every 300 meters you do a house. In between, make it green. Let them farm. And as you said, in the middle, I had those slides. In the middle, it's like there are clusters, right? Like a flower, like sunflower. So they have those circles. In the very middle, they have the church, the mosque, the shopping. Everything is there. But they have to walk a little bit because also all of us, we are not walking. So let them walk. Maybe bike lane, right? It did not finish yet, but I'm just saying this is what they should do. So you don't want it to be, if you have that land, I mean, sometimes you don't have, don't go next to each other. You know, between the other house, the neighbor, is like 200 meters, 300 meters, and fill that with fruits and food to feed everybody else, and then sell the rest. So yes, I did, and then I expanded that to a major fish farming every, actually 4 months, usually 6 months, the intensive production now for this tilapia farm, until now is producing every 3 to 4 months. And now, some of the things people you don't like to eat because the food for the fish, you know, it's expensive and also smells bad. So I said, why don't you farm also the algae? The real food. Very simple. It's transparent e-glass tank. You get that from algae, billions of them, microalgae. Goes to the fish, easy to eat. They get even fat. And then you take the residual, all the fish. I'm doing those greenhouses all the way, large one next to it, 42 of them. And so the pipes come from the tilapia, huge tanks, going to that greenhouses, and the circle is going back and forth. It is happening. It's not dream. And the first time I met the governor, he said, everybody talks. Can you show me? At the end of the project, he said, did I show you? He said, yes. So we can do it if you have the will, if you have the guts to do it. And I'm not saying don't make money. Make money. Be rich, because the more you get rich, the more you're going to get back to the society. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move to the next section now. But before we do, we have some kind of an interlude. When we finish eating, we feel a little bit sluggish, okay? We're going to wake up from sleep or whatever, or get ready for the next section. I'm going to call my guy to come out and help me out. We're going to play a little bit of a game, all right? And I have our AAU tech guy help us out on how we're going to do this, all right? And please tell them your name. Okay, tell everybody.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So my name is Ajaman, and I'm here to get the room electrified with a very interesting game called Kahoot. And we're going to be talking about AfCFTA and APSS. So the game has been programmed to see how well you understand the AfCFTA and also how well you're following the APSS. So I have the team right there. That's right there. You would have to take your phone. We have Wi-Fi available. So take your phone and visit www.kahoot.it now. So take your phones or your laptops, any device you want to use to play, and then log on to www.kahoot.it. So when you open, you'll find this dialog box. Just enter the game pin over there. The game pin is 3526143. You will be asked to enter your nickname. So just put in any name, any catchy name. But any name which is not so cool for the screens would be bounced. So check your names. So who's going to be our first participant on the screen? Let's see who joins first. So we have Blue. Blue, can we see you? Who's Blue? Okay, that's Dio right there. Okay, Z. Where's Z? Great, Ziglipo. Who's next? Next person to join us, AAU. Veronica. Where's Veronica? Okay, Veronica, I see you. I am winning. Whoa. Who's winning? I see you. Okay. Who else? So far we have 5 participants on the screen. We have V. Where's V? V, let's see you. Or you want to be incognito? Okay. We have Ghana. Where's Ghana? Okay, so let's get more people sign in. Just go to Kahoot.it, enter the game pin. We have Ojampa. Where's Ojampa? Okay. All right, sir. Lexus. I know who you are, sure. Sober. Good. Who else? So let's check the volume. The volume over there on your far right are some icons. The third icon is for volume. You can increase it so we can hear what's happening in the video. The video is what happened in Rwanda 2018 when the first conference was held by the African Union towards AfCFTA. So you can see what happened in Rwanda. TTN. TTN. Okay. Kayla, I know who you are. So we have 13 participants so far, and we're more than 13, so I want to see the full house. Everybody in the house, please pick your phones and then join in. Okay, okay. Azaria. Great. We have Menu on the screen. Menu, I'm waving. Benno. Great. Uwana. Great. So we have 14 so far. We're still waiting for you, wherever you are, to also visit the www.kahoot.it, enter the game pin, and then give us your nickname, and let's see you on the screen. Leia, we're waving at you, wherever you are. Sure. So www.kahoot.it, enter the game pin, and then your nickname, and then we're gone. So we have 15. Can we get up to 20? If possible, we just move straight to the game. Can get 20. We got 16 now. 4 more. Waiting for 4 more people so we can move. Who's joined us? We see Sonju and Sam. Okay. Now we have more people coming in. Sure. Zambi, Shalom, Hank Clark, AA's mom, Moma. So we have 22 now. Are we good to go? Are we good to go? Okay. So we have 22 participants. Operator, are you ready? So in 3, 2, 1, start. So all about after. 3, 2, 1. Number 1. On your screens will be some answer parts. When you see the answer here, click the sign you see. What does after mean? Now, there are the signs you see here, the triangle, the circle, the diamond shape, and then the square are your answer parts on your phone. The fastest finger to click on the answer after reading the questions, you have less than 4 seconds. Click the answer, and let's see who is the genius in the house. So, time's up. Number 1, African Continental Free Trade Area. Let's see who's on top of the chart. Go to next. So, blue. Where's blue? Where's blue? Where's blue? That's Dio, right? So, Dio wants to be low-key. So, Dio and I Am Winning were the fastest fingers in the house with 809 points at a time. Let's see if we stay the same or we get someone taking over. So, for the first 5, Zoom, Ziklipo, and AAU are making a way. Anything can happen. Next question, please. We have 21 questions to go, so don't worry. What is the meaning of APSS? Be very careful of the answers. Take your time and make the right choice fast. Take your time, make the right choice fast. Time is running out. Okay, time up. Time up. So the answer is Africa Private Sector Summit. And we had 12 people getting it right and 1 person getting it wrong. But we have more people who chose wrong answers, and we'll find out why. Next, let's see who's leading the chat. Whoa, I knew this would happen. So we have Blue maintaining position with 1,071 points, and Ziklipo also rising up. And guess who's down? I Am Winning and Sonju are still here. Nobody knew. You have to rise from the below section. Next, try and rise up. Be fast. What is the theme of the APS Series 2? Take your time and study the answers very well. They can trick you. One, and bam. So, awakening Africa's sleeping giant in the implementation of AfCFTA. Surprisingly, we have it right here. But we had 3 people, 8 people, 2 people choosing answers that were wrong. Okay, so let's see who's leading now. Should we see those who got the wrong answers? Should we see them? Do you want to know who chose the red one? Anyway, you don't want to embarrass anybody. But we'll see them afterwards. So let's see the chart. Who's leading? Whoa. So blue is still leading, but I Am Winning also has now jumped up. Let's see what happens. Hank Clark, welcome to the League of Champions. When was the AfCFTA founded? When is it founded? When? When was it decided on? The date. Which date? Take your time, but be fast. 2, 1, and go. The answer is 21st March 2018. Some people are happy, some are sad. So let's see. Somebody chose December 2020. Somebody chose the green, 2 people, December, just last year. How? Okay, next. Let's see who's leading now. Is it blue? Oh, blue. What's happening? So, Ziklipo, well done. Sober, I Am Winning a menu for maintaining your your stand on the top 5 champions. Next, please. What was the effective date for the AfCFTA? No, it was decided on what date, and it became effective on a different date. So what date did it become effective? Ratified, let me say. Check it out very well. That's Mustafa Ki over there, His Excellency. Get your dates right and be fast. Somebody say made a mistake. Okay, so it was on the 30th of May 2019 that it got ratification. And let's see who's leading. Is it still blue? Zig, are you sure? Okay, let's see what happens. Is there, oh, no. So blue is still standing on top with over 2,000 points, and Zig is right behind him, but there's 400 points in there. Next, please. How many countries signed the AfCFTA at its inception? How many countries signed the AfCFTA at its inception? How many? Is it 25? Is it 15? Is it 30? Or 21? And we have 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. 30 countries signed at the inception. Somebody says we made a mistake. With this one, you can't take chances. You gotta get it right. Okay, so who's leading? Next. Ghana. Ghana, well done. You just came from the bottom to take away, who was that? Sure. I'm winning is gone. Okay, next. Which country hosted the launch of the AfCFTA? Which country hosted the launch of the AfCFTA? Check things very well. Check things very well. Was it Ethiopia? Or was it Nigeria? Or Angola? It was Rwanda, Kigali. Somebody chose Nigeria. And somebody chose Angola in this room. Anyway, let's see what's happening on the score chart. It's still blue, right? Oh, so Azaria, put your hands together for yourself, okay? Azaria and Leah for kicking away Ziglipo and AAU and the others. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. But what's happening? Blue is still doing it. I mean, if you have any targets, kick blue out. All right, so next. Identify the AAU Commissioner for Trade. Identify the AAU Commissioner for Trade. Yeah, I understand that. But you can look at the pictures right here. There are 4 of them. The triangle one, the circle one, the diamond one, then the square one. I can only tell you one, that there's somebody called Arikana in there. Okay, so that's him right there. This one. I understand if you get it wrong, I understand. All right, next question. Whoa, so it just happened, right? So the king of the moment has been dropped by his own man, Ziglipo. Okay, well done. Ethiopia, well done. The following are accomplishments of the African Union except. The following are accomplishments of the AU except. Check very well. After the African passport, the free movement of people, and also silencing the gangs, which all these are achievements except one. Bam. Silencing the gangs. And you know why, right? You know why? Because silencing the gangs has not been achieved. The whole of 2020, we had so many conflicts around, and it was not realized. Sorry about that. Next question. There we have it. So we have Ziglipo in lead. The following are objectives of the AfCFTA except. Number 1, to create a continental market for goods and services, free movement of people and capital, pave the way to create customs union, ban impoverished goods from abroad. What are the All these are objectives except out. So, except banning impoverished goods from abroad. Good. Next. Well done, Leah and TTN, for making that huge step. Next. The following are forms of economic integration except. The following are forms of economic integration except. We have customs union, assembly union, common market, free trade. Which of them isn't an economic integration? Yes, assembly union is not part. It's either you're doing a free trade, customs union, or common market. So well done. But somebody chose. Okay, sure. Anyway, customs union. It's part. Somebody chose free trade. Okay, next. Well done. Only the best will remain here. The best. Next. Where is the AfCFTA Secretariat located? Where in the world and in Africa is the AfCFTA Secretariat located? Is it Tanzania? Is it Zimbabwe? Is it Sudan or Ghana? Let's see. Where is it located? So, put your hands together for yourselves, guys. You've done well. You all got it right. Nobody chose a different country. It's Ghana. So let's see who's in the lead. Okay. Good. Top 5. Next question, please. What is the name of the Secretary General of the AfCFTA? The Secretary General. What is the name? Is it Musa Mene? Is it Kwesi Kuma? Is it Ram Kelly Mene? Oh, so it's Wam Kelly Mene. Somebody chose Ram Kelly Mene. It's Wam Kelly Mene. So who's in the lead? Ethiopia is on fire. Blue is back. So these are the revelations, okay? Blue is back. Ethiopia is on fire. Sonju has joined the top 5. And Ziglipo and Leah are in shaky positions. Okay, so let's move on. Watch out, Ziglipo. Ethiopia is behind you. What is the nationality of the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat? Where does he come from? Wamkele Mene. Which country does he come from? Is he a Cameroonian, Nigerian, Ghanaian, or South African? The fastest fingers. And we go. So he is South African. South African. Let's move to the scoreboard and see who is doing what. Scoreboard. So Sonju has now moved on. Leah dropped. Next question, please. The AfCFTA Secretariat in Ghana was commissioned on the... Which date was the AfCFTA commission in Ghana? Which date was the Secretariat in Ghana commissioned? Was it this year or last year? The date. Bam. Okay, so I think the August is spelled wrong, but that's the date. So it's a worse question. Okay, so let's see what happened on the scoreboard. Oh, Veronica joined in, and Leah. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Next question, please. Who is the host of the Agenda 2023 show on AAU TV? Who is the host of the Agenda 2063 show on AAU TV? Who's this man? Who is the host of this show called Agenda 2063? We have 38 seconds. Countdown. What is the name of this man? He hosts a show called Agenda 2063 on AAU TV. So you have to check the names very well and make the right choice to be in lead. Don't regret that you chose the wrong answer. So we have 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. The name is Emmanuel K. Bensa Jr. Who got it right? Who got it right? Only a few hands. Okay, we'll see. Okay, so, whoa, Leah is back. Zambi is back. But blue is still in the lead. Next question, please. Who is the host of Impact Stories on AAU TV? How many of us watch AAU TV? So right from here, I want us all to go to AAU TV on YouTube and subscribe to our channel so you can now know our host for our programs. Who is the host for Impact Stories on AAU TV? I thought you knew because you were watching us. Or you don't watch? No, not me. That's the host over there. The name is Irene Dufie Adai. Yeah. So that's Irene over there. Okay, next. Okay, Ifeanyi Sonju. Next. As of July 2019, 54 of the 55 countries, African Union states, had signed the agreement except, as at the date, 54 of the 55 African Union states had signed the agreement. That's after, except, for some strange reasons. It's Eritrea. Let me see by hands who got it correct. The hands are low. Also, let's see what happens on the scoreboard. Next. No changes. Zambia is back. Leah is gone. Next question. How many countries ratified the AfCFTA on the day it was launched on March 21st? How many countries ratified the AfCFTA on the day it was launched in March 21st? How many? Do you follow AfCFTA? Do you follow the African Union? If you do, how many? 22 AU member states did. And some tables are happy. Some too are quiet. Some are quiet. Okay. Can you turn to someone and say, are you winning? Ask them, are you winning? Ask them, are you on the top 5? Are you there? Are you on the screen? Ask somebody, are you on the screen? Okay, so one click to the screen. Who's winning? Who is there? So, at this stage, you should know those who are there. Wait, relax. Who is Sonju? Sonju, where are you? We want to know our top 5 because you are almost winning. So I know Alex, she's back there. Ethiopia, where is Ethiopia? That's you right there. Where is Ziglipo? Right there. Blue is right there. So it is between Ziglipo, Blue, and Ethiopia. All the best. Next. 20. I am the country currently considered as the giant of Africa, owing to my large population and economy. Who am I? I am the country currently considered as a giant of Africa. Choose the president of that country. You have less than 4 seconds. Choose the president of that country. The picture over there. Whoa. Put your hands together for yourself, people. It is so well. It is him. His Excellency Mahmoud Buhari. So 21 answers. Well, somebody chose Ghana. With population size? No. Okay, next. Whoa. Welcome, Sam. Whoever you were back, all right? You've just jammed, and now you are in there at top 4 with Sonju, the last person, Ziklipo, and Alex. Ethiopia. Sorry about that. We just lost you. Okay, next. 21. We're almost ending it. The AU intended to launch the single currency in January 2020. True or false? The African Union intended to launch the single currency in January 2020. True or false? Get the facts right. It was true. It was true. But did it work? It didn't work. Now, we're about to crown it all, so you know who your winners are. Nobody new joined the top 5. It means that at this point, if you are not here, then well done. Then you are out. Then you are out. So I think that we should see, I want us to see our top 5 now. Know who they are. So that we can just conclude. Sam. Okay. All right. So the last question, the last decider, but let me see. 13,000 points against 11,000 points. Well, the idea of AfCFTA was mentioned in the Abuja Treaty. True or false? The idea of AfCFTA was mentioned in the Abuja Treaty. True or false? 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. So it was true. The Abuja Treaty mentioned something of a free trade area for the African continent. Now, at this point, I want to see all our top 5. You're here. If you're one of them, just be on your feet, okay? Yo, top 5, are you here? Let's see you. Come. First, come. Top 5, come. Top 5, come. Put your hands together. Top 5. It's not easy to be in the top 5 for 22 questions. It's not easy. So just come here and let's give you a hand. Put your hands together for yourself, guys. Well done. Blue, come on. Sure. We can do it better. Put your hands together for them, the top 5. So tell us your name. I mean, we don't know who you are on the board. So, what is your name on the board?
Ziglipo.
I am just so happy to see these young people. It's credit for everybody, but we expected this from a cream of the crop, okay?
Your name?
Esther. On the
You're on the screen.
Leah.
Okay.
Alex.
Blue.
Oh, that's nice. But where's Sam? Sam, are you here? Sam, come. Yeah, Sam, come on. Sure. Put your hands over Sam. Yeah, please come in. Do you want to say something, please?
Yes. I have a query.
Okay.
Question number 19 was not correct.
Yes.
The question said how many countries had ratified at the launch of the AfCFTA in Kigali,
Okay.
18th of March 2018.
18. Yeah.
And it was none. It wasn't 22. 22 was at the agreement coming into force on the 30th of May, 2019. So
Thank you very much, sir. Well noted. I got that. Appreciate it. Okay, so we have our top 5 here. So can we have a picture with our top 5? A picture, please. So they're ready. Okay, thank you. So the final, we have the winner is the third runner-up is Leah, and Ziglipo is number 2, and the winner is Blue. So put your hands together for Dio for winning our Kahoot challenge. Over to you.
Okay, now, this is really, really good. We're going to move into the next session, but I want to tell you, all those questions were just created today. We're just sitting here. Just something to, yes, you participate, but we are also learning, and I do want to thank all of our participants. Thank you so much. I'm going to have Dr. Sam come up with the next session. I hope you enjoyed that. Didn't you? Did you enjoy that? I did not hear you. Awesome, awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, we have our final session. It will be shorter, but very exciting because we have a full lineup of amazing minds. So I'm going to invite the moderator to come up now. He was trying to negotiate to go home. I said no. Mr. Bumi is here to help us with the next session, and he will introduce his panelists. But thank you, sir, for the grace.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I wasn't actually going to go home, as he joked. I was wondering whether we should have it for as long as we had intended, or whether we should postpone till tomorrow. But he insisted, and we shall continue. I obey orders. You're welcome. My name is Bumi Makinwa. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of a company called A Unique Communication for Leadership, which I've been managing now for about 8 years. Before then, I was the Africa Regional Director of United Nations Population Fund, which I had for 6 years. And before then, I had several other positions in the United Nations and other international, multinational companies. The original panelists on your program are not here, but we have volunteer and willing volunteers who have accepted to stand in for us and make sure that we have interesting discussions. So I have the privilege and the honor of calling the following people with our depth of gratitude. Mr. Adedayo Dapo Dumoye, please come to the front here. He is the founding partner and the Chief Executive Officer of a consulting company called Think Farm. They are engaged in transport and process engineering. Thank you very much. Thank you. I also have the honor of calling on Mr. Benjamin Achampo, who is the co-chair of the Africa Private Sector Summit. And you know what that is, I guess. Please come forward to the front here. Mr. Achampo, thank you very much. And the third person is Mr. Frank Mugyeyi, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Minerals Africa Development Institution, and is also the Interim Director of African Minerals Development Center at the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa. Welcome, Mr. Mugyeyi. We are privileged as well to have standing in and ready, if we ask them, two eminent and very, very knowledgeable persons who have said, if we need to answer questions, we will be there for you. The first one is Mr. Nyika Adeyemi, who is the Senior Advisor of the Economic Commission for Africa, and is within the Africa Trade Policy Center, one of the financiers, if you can say, of this summit. Thank you, Mr. Adeyemi. Please give him a round of applause. Also standing there in the wings with us is our very own Mr. Judson Wendell, who is extremely knowledgeable on this subject and says, I'll be willing to answer questions. So thank you, Mr. Wendell, for being available. Now, the topic of our discussion is infrastructure and transportation for RECs meaning Regional Economic Communities, and the African Continental Free Trade Area. Panelists, if you allow me, we can interpret this. I think what we are expected to handle is to look at transportation in Africa, look at infrastructure in Africa, and say within this, what are the key roles for the regional economic communities, especially within the African Continental Free Trade Area. And given that you are not privileged to have 24 hours notice, please take it as you want, and it will be interactive. So if one of you would just like to kick off, looking at the state of infrastructure in Africa, state of transportation in Africa, that would be a fine way to start. So could I call you as you come, if you don't mind then? All right. Mr. Dumoye, Mr. Dayo Dumoye, could you just take that on to begin with?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure and honor to be on this podium at this opportune time. I feel highly privileged to be sitting with moguls in the industry, and I will call them mentors, seniors, and fathers who know maybe better than I do in the top subject matter we are discussing. Most importantly, the background information, but I would like to start with the context of the currency of the transportation system in Africa. It is important to go by historical perspective, and with that, I would like to bring to knowledge that during the colonial era, essentially, Africa transport system centers around how goods and persons are moved from centers where resources are exploited out and into the coastal areas and away from Africa. And it is so saddening that 60 plus years after many African countries got their independence, we are still relying on this method. So I'm going to quickly leapfrog into what are the various, how would I put it, technologies that are available that we can explore to be able to jump into the 21st century and bring Africa to speed with the rest of the world. Essentially, there are intelligence systems, intermodal systems, and that essentially means bringing all of the possible transportation systems to work together hand in hand, such that you now have airports that are located by the sea, so that you can have seaports and you can have trade stations also. In essence, at every port, you can have the technology and the handshake between all the different modes of transportation. So if you are bringing your goods from, by air, it lands at the airport, and the airport is just close by to a seaport, and at the same time, you have a train station crisscrossing through it and taking your goods and services and persons across. We have seen this done across the rest of the world, and I believe it is an opportunity for Africa as we are planning, especially this summit should start pushing for considerations and policies of how we can implement this quickly so that Africa can leapfrog. Immediately we start manufacturing, we can distribute across the continent. I will stop there for now. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, Dayo, thank you for taking us, not even just looking at where we are, but taking us into the future that you foresee. It may sound like a dream, but I agree fully with you that, in fact, if we are going to take off from where we are, we should not be looking at 5, 10 years. We should be looking at 50 years. And just for looking at the background, it is said that Africa has the largest infrastructural gap of all regions in the world. For example, in electricity, 2/3 of Africans do not have access to regular electric supply. And this is really not interesting. But before we continue, I'm told that we have Dr. Agman Masalem, who has also volunteered to be part of this discussion. He's a professor, you have heard of him, and he doesn't need much more introduction. Please welcome. So I'm going to move on to Mr. Achampong and say, given what you just heard from Mr. Dumoye, given what I've said about the gap, so between where we are and where we should be, it's a huge, in French they say fossé, what do you call it? A kind of, it's somewhere you have to jump over. It's, what's the word? A gulf, thank you. There's a big gulf between where we are and where we are supposed to be. What should we be doing? How can we bridge this gap? Mr. Champong.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, audience. This is an opportunity for us to share some thoughts on this very important Can you hear me? Is that okay now? All right, thank you. So looking at what my colleague just mentioned and bridging the gap, one of the things that I find fascinating in Africa, and personally I also study mechanical engineering, and during my time when I finished the studies and I was my national service, I did work at GASEM, and then later work at Tama Dry Docks a little bit before moving into teaching computing, and I left the country. Now this is what you find out, that in the engineering field, or you go to a place where you were expecting to see a technical person heading that kind of department, you find somebody that studied a subject differently from the department that he's heading. Now, if an engineering department is being headed by somebody who studied agriculture, without any disrespect to the person, you kind of ask yourself the question, how can this person solve the problem of this industry? So you have people with theory heading a practical department. Now this has been the problem of Africa, because the person got that position because probably he knew the president, he knew somebody in a position who decided, or a colleague, or somebody that they all go to the pub together and decide to fix him. Therefore, he's got a job over there. Whether the person has got the technical know-how, the experience, the connection to be able to build that kind of department or that industry is not taken into consideration. So now looking at the historical and looking at where we're going, if we're going to really close the gap and become the Africa that we want, then we put the right people at the right place with the right technical knowledge in doing exactly what they've studied. Now, let me also add this thing to it. When I was studying my engineering, and I'm saying this because I know that it's being watched and being listened, that we need to look at our education. There are a lot of machines that I studied theoretically, but never saw them in a practical or in its form. It was when I left the country, then I began to see everything was a prototype or a model. Now, how can you qualify an engineer with just a model without a practice? And yet, with our certificate, BSc, Masters, we call ourselves that we engineers, and we haven't produced even a common wheelbarrow. So if we're going to close the gap, we need to look at the whole academic situation. We need to look at the whole educational system, and we begin to produce people who've got the technical abilities to head this department and make sure that they come out with solutions that we'll be able to implement. By so doing, I believe that we'll be able to close this gap and then begin to compete with the world. If not, we are joking and nothing will be done. Because one of the things that I've seen is that we procrastinate a lot. I've always been laughing at Africa 2063. If you are hungry, when do you want to eat? I say, if you are hungry, when do you want to eat? So why 63? I asked a gentleman by that time, how old will you be? He said, 83. I said, you're holding a walking stick by that time. What can you do? So we need to look at all these things, and what needs to be done, we can do it now. What cannot be done, if we can work towards it, I believe it will help. Let me end here, if that will be okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Champon. Okay. You're telling us that Agenda 2063 must be now, not 2063. Mr. Mugunyeyi, looking at the structures we have in place, the political structures especially, the regional economic communities, and the new AfCFTA, do you see the potentials for doing what we have just outlined by the two gentlemen, leaping into the future and changing the way we are even prepared to take the positions, the technical and engineering or, areas that will take us into that future? Are we ready? Do the RECs have a role to play? Does AfCFTA do something that we haven't even done before?
Thank you so much. I just want to tackle this subject, looking at the infrastructure in three ways. The infrastructure to produce goods and services that can be tradable under the Continental Free Trade Area. The infrastructure that can move goods to connect the markets in real time. And the infrastructure that is in the system that clears goods to be able to move across borders. And this is without even looking at the transport and the railway lines and the ships and so forth. When you look at the Bali Facilitation Agreement, the Global Bali Facilitation Agreement, it looks at the goods moving in real time. But the way we've been implementing the Bali Facilitation Agreement on the continent is to allow the imported goods to move faster. If you look at the goods entering in my region, East African Community, that the goods should move faster from Mombasa into Kigali, Rwanda in 5 days or 10 days. Be clear that at the border in less than 3 days. You look at the trucks piled up. That means you're going to reduce the way bridges from Mombasa along the route to Busia, along the route to Katuna in between Uganda and Rwanda, and into Rwanda. The same thing from South Africa entering into Zambia. You have to have one-stop border posts that clears goods in real time to be able to move faster, even when you have railway lines and transport. And this infrastructure, which is digitized, that a truck arrives at the border, goods are cleared in time and moves forward, is still lacking on the continent. Probably in the COMESA region, in the SADC region, there could be maybe 3 or 2 one-stop border post centers at Kirundu and probably in East Africa at Busia. None of them. When you look at single window systems where manifests are loaded onto the ship before the ship docks so that the goods, it's just clearing goods from outside the continent. But it has not helped the young people in Kenya, in Rwanda, producing goods to move within the region. Again, within the region economic communities, we have, and I agree with Benjamin here, that we have put people in place. I am an economist. I cannot actually understand what an axle load means. But you'll find that the people who are making policies in the COMESA region, that this axle load transportation is allowed under the COMESA may not be the same under SADC. So a truck comes loading goods, arrives at the border post, but cannot cross because that axle load is not allowed the other side of the country. And we are talking about moving within country to country. Because Kenya may be a country in the East African community, as a regional economic community, but wants to trade with the DRC, which is a SADC member state, and they could be sharing borders or closer to sharing borders, but they can't move goods faster. So as we look at increasing infrastructure on the continent, and let's look at how cheaper do we produce our goods and how quicker do they connect to the markets. If we could have engineers in this room here, like my colleagues have said, and you look at the Inga Dam, which is in DRC, which can produce electricity that will reduce the cost of energy on the continent to 3 cents a kilowatt. 3 cents or 2 cents a kilowatt, which means we shall even be producing at a lower energy cost than China. And therefore, any businesses in the world will want to relocate to Africa because we'll be producing cheaper because we have what it takes. But we haven't done that, and everybody here is saying the same thing. So if we're going to look at the infrastructure, let's look at it broadly, and we can start at the regional economic communities agreeing inter-regional trade to move goods faster, to produce them quicker, and let them go to the markets much faster. And we can do it. Thank you.
Mr. Mugiei, thank you for tying it all together so far and giving us specific solutions from the continent itself, from what we have, not what we have to look for. But as you said, even the harmonization of our standards across countries poses a major problem. But isn't that what AfCFTA is supposed to ease and overcome? Dr. Masalen, how do you look at the new momentum on AfCFTA in view of all these blockages and challenges that we have in terms of harmonization of policies, of standards, of protocols? Are we looking at something that will take us to a revolutionary change in the continent? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. I think one very important issue that has been discussed about the infrastructure and the relationship to the trade and the economy of Africa. One issue is, it is very important to think globally within the continent, not individually within a country. And the reason is, one of the issues just being raised. You go from Ghana to another country where you have less infrastructure and no connectivity and harmony between the roads there and roads here. And then you have a very big pipe, maybe 10-inch pipe, and you suddenly go to 2-inch pipe or otherwise in the opposite direction. Excuse me. So as an engineer, 40-some registered engineer, I'm saying that when you look at the network, whether that network is fluid, water, or a network to be electrical, or a network to be roads and highways, you need to look at it carefully, how you connect, how you integrate, and how you do this harmony instead of having a great investment in one country and the neighboring country or the target country has less effective infrastructure. So it needs to be, as I said, we always talk about the African Union, or always we want to be united, and that's from the heart of all of us. But I'm just saying we need to implement that idea and execute it. And we need to start even from, I'm not saying that, we have to do that for everything that we wanted to do, but at least we start from very minimum requirements for integration. So what I would suggest is somehow either through the African Union or so, or some other organization that I'm not aware of, that, excuse me, that when you start, like in US, they have Federal Highway Administration. So the Federal Highway Administration takes care of this task. how you connect states together, and states means a country. So the different states has to go for approval before they start, you know, building one road. It's not up to them. Legally, the federal overrule the state, within a limit, of course. The state has also governor and constitution and everything else. However, when it comes to something like this, that's a federal matter, not a state matter. Because, yes, every governor want to have a high income to their people, or his or her people, but at the same time, you may actually ruin the economy of the neighbor. So it is very critical that you have to think and think right. Planning is very important. As I said, I don't know who I'm preaching ourselves. We know that, but as I said, some official, some organization that has that power of execution has to be participating in events like that. Whether they like it or not,
Very good.
That should be an obligation.
Very good, Dr. Musalen.
Thank
Very good. You are speaking to, almost directly, you are addressing Mr. Adeyemi in what you are saying. And I'm abusing my privilege here. I know that Mr. Adeyemi leads the advocacy for AfCFTA in the continent from the ECA. And you are addressing an issue that speaks directly to some of the protocols of AfCFTA. So rather than having a federal structure that has that overriding power to overrule how those infrastructural elements that all of you have talked about should come together, there are protocols within the AfCFTA. And there, Mr. Adeyemi, this is over to you.
Thank you. What is over to me now?
We have carried the discussion to a point where we're thinking about how do we harmonize the kind of situation where you have, not exactly from my panelists, but you have a kind of rail line that starts in Accra. It's going to Abidjan. But as you cross the border, the gauge changes. So the train that leaves Accra stops at the border because it cannot use the kind of gauge system that you have in Côte d'Ivoire, going up to cross into the other border. And similar things even about electricity. You can't go from one country to the other, especially industrial. How do we deal with this? And the last panelist suggested a federal system where there is a body that can overrule states. But I'm saying maybe we have another body or another system that is going to come out of the AfCFTA, which you know about. Please.
Yeah, thank you. I was engaged in some other things, were distracted momentarily. The whole idea of harmonization is something that we've been dealing with for a few years now in the framework of PIDA, in the framework of many of the transboundary infrastructure that we're dealing with. Yeah, it is true that, for example, the standard gauge, countries have standard gauge, and if you are supposed to go from one country to the other and it changes, even let's go simpler than that. There is a road connecting Ethiopia with Kenya. Kenya is driving left, Ethiopia is driving right. Now think about it. How do you, when you are carrying cargo, and you get to a point, and the driver has to intuitively move left when he's been driving right for 300 miles. Suddenly he has to start thinking about driving left. Now I could tell you how we figured that out, what we did in terms of that, but this is really one of the challenges of harmonization. It is not as easy as it sounds, because countries will say, look, let's meet at the border because I don't have the resources to take care of some of these things that you want me to do. Yeah, Chair, the issue, I heard my brother speak about one-stop border post, about single window, and these are very, very good, constructs that would enhance the implementation of CFTA. But there are major problems. One-stop border post means that you are trusted by your neighbor. It means that when a cargo is coming from Lagos going to Abidjan, Abidjan can trust that whatever Lagos says is in the cargo is exactly what is in the cargo. There will be no surprises. Otherwise, everything breaks down. Now, what we have been seeing and what we have been told by countries as we go around is exactly this. You want me to trade, you want me to open my border, you want me to make the trust go faster and not be able to check them so that I don't keep them for 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Instead, keep them for 1 hour and let them go because they've been checked before at one border. The problem with that is that member states are telling us we are expecting plantain and yams in this container. When it got to the destination, we've seen small arms and light weapons. How did it happen? How can we trust you? So they are saying, how can we pay attention to implementation of CFTA if we cannot trust what's in the cargo? Which is why we have been thinking, and I think you know about it because your company is helping along this line. We are thinking about what do we do to remove human interference in this process so that human beings who are changing yams into AK-47 are removed. And when we do that effectively, our member states can trust the integrity of the cargo. Cargo can move faster, and then the aspirations of founding fathers can be realized. Eventually, I would like to talk to some of the economics of transport in Africa, but let me stop there. Thank you.
You can now see why I had to call Mr. Adeyemi, because I know that he has spoken to so many countries on the matters that have come up here, and that he is so current on where we are, what the challenges are. As AfCFTA is trying to deal with harmonization, you are dealing with sovereignty, you are dealing with some level of poverty, limited resources, but you are dealing with the potential that can come off if we can lessen some of these challenges or the issues around sovereignty. So here we go again to our panelists. The RECs have a lot of protocols on their what do you call it, their mandates or already agreed by countries. But they will be the first to admit to you that implementing the agreement, the countries have already said yes, even at the levels of heads of state, ECOWAS, SADC, EAC, all of them. They have agreed, but implementing them has not been easy. What do you propose to RECs? What do you propose to countries? Let's go back to Mr. Dayo Dumoye to start with.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to take a cue from the conversation as it's progressing. I believe that if we focus on the SMART goals that we want to achieve by 2063 or 2050 or even 2030, then the solutions will definitely and naturally come from out of us. How do I mean? For example, if we set a target for the infrastructure in Africa, instead of saying we want to invest 3 trillion in African infrastructure, we can say that by 2030, we want to have moved 200,000 TEUs within the continent and within the continent alone. When we set these kind of SMART goals, it will naturally come to us how we can effectively achieve this. For example, then all the infrastructures that we need would naturally take priority.
Dayo, the critic will tell you, we have many goals like that have been agreed. how come we are not meeting even 20% of many of them? Even the SDGs have been agreed. Where are we? That's what the critic is going to say, not me.
Yes, okay. So I will come to that pretty quickly. If we, for example, look at it from the perspective of this is what we want to achieve, and these are the things we need to achieve them, then we can start plugging the holes of what is preventing us from achieving them. For example, we can start asking the question, if we use the existing ports, the existing rail lines, the existing airports, will they help us achieve these goals? If the answer is no, then we need to take that bold decision to say, we leave what we are doing right now and look for the technology that would ensure that we achieve this. Case in point, for example, Africa needs not the standard gauge rail, not the old gauge rail, but a high-speed rail system. We need a corridor that we will dedicate, that will connect every city across Africa to every hub, such that the goods you are talking about, once they are containerized, they are digitized, nobody can dismantle or touch them without you sending out a signal. These technologies are already there. And immediately they land at the port, they send a signal to say that I am here. The signal goes to the port authority, the signal goes to the port security, the signal goes to the owner of the vessels, the signal goes to the administrators, to the tax, to everybody, and they know where it is. And when that is done, we can automatically send the bus, the trucks to do the last mile delivery. This eliminates and solves all the problems we are talking about. But what should we do first? We should sit down and agree that this is the corridor and this right of way. Some people will have to move. Some people will have to lose their homestead for the sake of Africa to move forward. Some people will have to sacrifice the coastal areas to be able to achieve this. Then, when we have done that, then the energy and the resources that is required to be able to build these things will come up. But if we have not come to the understanding that the methods we are using is not going to get us to where we are going to, we will keep on going round and round in circles and investing in the wrong places.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Muyeye, I'm jumping to you. The international community, especially I think it was the ADB, estimated that Africa needs $170 billion to overcome the gap, the financial gap that it has in its infrastructures, especially energy. And that if it has energy, it will be the main engine of growth, of economic development, reducing poverty, generating employment, and so on and so forth. When people hear 170 billion, they collapse because they say, where is it going to come from? How will you help? What will you suggest, Mr. Muyeye?
$170 billion is a lot of money, but currently the richest man enough in the world has more than that money. Is in 250 billion, a single person. And to say that the continent of African, which has, which you can fit in almost 14 other countries of the world, including China, America, India, and fit in properly. To say that we need just 170 billion, for me, it's not even, who determines that anyway? We are hearing African Development Bank, because when you look at the funds that probably Ethiopia has used as a single country to put a railway line between Ethiopia and Djibouti and put up the Renaissance Dam, probably it's more than that. So there is a tendency that we, the pundits, the so-called economists, come up with basics of figures that will influence heads of state to make decisions that are implementable. But we are here as a private sector summit, which should have come first, because it's like Africa, we are putting the cart before the horse. Because the private sector should have influenced the decisions. When we did a review of COMESA decisions in 2013 in Kigali, we found that 52% of the COMESA heads of state decisions are unimplementable. 52%. And actually 23 of them were irrelevant.
Why?
Because they were made by myself, an economist. I was one of them. I was not the one who made those decisions, but I'm saying we are the ones, we are Africans who go and start trying to influence the heads of, but we are not the doers. When you look at what Africa needs in terms of traffic, of infrastructure, energy, ICT, transport, and we have all the minerals that are required to put a corridor, Cape to Cairo that we keep on singing, or you know, from west to east. Why are we not having the private sector in that process doing the work that is supposed to be done? Because we have iron ore, we have bauxite, we have sand, we have gravel, we have oil, we have bitumen, we have aggregate stones, we have each and every mineral that you need to put up a railway line. And it can also benefit the private sector to put on roads. But what we have done, and I'm not condemning the African Union or other institutions, we have the PIDA, which is the program for infrastructure development for Africa, which everybody is looking at. We have sub-regional corridors, north-south corridor. We have pools, East African, pulling together. But what is the missing link is that this decision should be informed by member states, because African Union, East African Community, ECOWAS are member states, not the Secretariat. You know, it's not the Secretariat in Addis Ababa, which is the African Union Commission, but a member state. So Uganda agreeing with Ethiopia or Kenya to, right now, the Kenya has finished its own standard gauge railway up to coming to Uganda side. Uganda hasn't started doing their own side. So when we want to move those goods between the two countries, and they have not even put that together, not allowing to get the private sector to do the thing, we have a problem. So my thinking here is that integration in Africa, including infrastructure development, should be private sector led, like it is in Europe. When UK built the channel to connect with France, it was about moving goods faster, not people, and yes, people, yes, but move goods faster. So when now they have Brexited from Europe, they're looking at businesses. When they were discussing with Ireland, they were looking at those decisions that will impact on Northern Ireland and Ireland when Britain gets out of Europe. So integration should be informed by the private sector. That's the first point. And we need to unpack these agreements like AfCFTA. What does it mean? Because AfCFTA means that someone has gone innovatively and produced a glass, or this water we are drinking here, and it's made in Ghana, but it should be sold in the rest of the world, of the country. And that will be a same small and medium enterprise, small and medium, the thinkers. They go along the way. Someone told us he dropped out of school at 16 and started businesses, and those businesses should be moved into the other world. We should have a bottom-up approach. We have been using a top-down approach, that we do decisions like CFTA, and I'm actually impressed that among all the frameworks, and there are so many of them, we have Africa Mining Vision, Boosting African Infrastructure, IDA, and so forth. AfCFTA is one of the most talked about African initiative, and I believe it will, and it is being discussed by the young people. So as long as we work towards that and getting the private sector to influence the decision, because they're the ones who will go back and tell East African community, put your house in order, we are implementing AfCFTA. Let's have the thing, what it takes to move things closer. So what happened at the African Union level, which will help us, is that they removed at least 2 summits that were of all heads of state summits. So we have now 1 summit at the African Union level in January, and we have the next summit at the regional coordinating, REX coordinating, so coming together. I think through that frameworks, working with the private sector, APSS has got a lot of work to do. Then we can have decisions that are implementable. Thank you.
Thank you very much for, again, being very practical and making suggestions that can take us forward. I'm going to call on Mr. Wendell. There's been a lot of talk now about the private sector becoming the driver of the growth in infrastructure. when we say private sector, some people will tell you that the private sector itself, is it African? A large number of companies that trade in this continent and that drive the economy of the continent are not driven, their own companies themselves are not driven from here. And so they don't have what we may want to call African-oriented objectives. That's one issue. The second issue is even the organized private sector. How organized is it? So, Mr. Wendell, can you enlighten us a little bit, briefly, on these issues?
What are you trying to do? Put me in trouble? I think we've made some mistakes in our structures. I believe very strongly that by reference that the private sector historically has always been represented by the Chamber of Commerce. There have been errors as people joined the Chamber of Commerce and became successful. They exited the chamber. They now had corridors, they had access to the corridors of power, and they abandoned the chamber. And so over the years, what you've seen is that chambers have, the position of the chamber in many of the countries have dropped considerably. There's one aspect of it. So now you have the mushrooming of all kinds of organizations. Some of them probably just tent membership. They call themselves an association that is business related. All right? So where do we go? Do we continue to indulge, accept these kinds of organizations, or should we, at the country level, regional level, and the continental level, set certain basic criteria under which an organization is recognized to represent certain industry? I have all the respect for the Manufacturers Association. It's a relevant body. I have all the respect for for example, the shipping industry. There are other professional organizations, lawyers and so forth and all of that. But I believe very strongly we should all have one voice under the umbrella of the National Chamber of Commerce. Okay? If we can succeed in achieving this, I think the private sector would be much stronger at the AAU or at any organization for that matter. Now, in terms of direct infrastructure, what is happening is that it is not the private sector engaged in financing and building building infrastructure across the continent. It is largely a government effort. Is it healthy for the continent if we want to accelerate the pace under which we can achieve Agenda 2063 probably in the next 20 years? The answer is no. This is what this summit is all about. How do we galvanize? How do we get the government to begin to understand, to get out of the concept of doing business and engage the private sector to undertake the doings of the private sector? What are the incentives to induce the likes of our moguls across the continent, okay, to take the regional effort in building the roads, building the bridges, building ships, utilizing our waterways and so forth and all of that? That's what we should be focusing on. That's what this conference is all about. The other aspect of things that, in terms of social solidarity, that the infrastructure program or projects can bring to the rural areas, that the corridors of these roads, whether it is roads, whether it is a train passing through certain areas, it could have direct economic benefits in uplifting the people along those corridors. For example, you give a contract to a foreign company, they bring all of the equipment, they produce the crushed rock locally, okay, so forth. I have a crazy idea, I submit I'm crazy, that the crushed rocks along the corridors happen to be in communities. how do we program ourselves so that the crushed rock that are produced for building the roads, for building the rail stations and so forth, the people along those corridors can benefit from it, not just in terms of income, but also socially, in terms of schools, in terms of clinics and so forth along the corridors. So these are basic things that in designing our infrastructure programs, we should take into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wendell, for words of wisdom. Some of them sound like ideals. We should aim for them, and we should strive to reach them. Yes, we should. Reality on the ground right now is that we are not as organized as we would like to be, even as private sector. The government doesn't listen as much as we would like it to. And then there are other political imperatives that drive government, isn't it? Mr. Champon, I'm coming back to you. So, we are closing up now. Closing words of advice. If we were to overcome those major challenges in infrastructure development, are the RECs going to be relevant? Is AfCFTA a major step forward? Even if we are struggling with how to operationalize, or you are not optimistic? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. This is a very good question. And to give an answer to that, you initially asked a question which my colleague answered in terms of implementation. Africa's problem has always been attitudinal problem. Africa has not got problem with money or resources or skills to be able to develop or to turn this continent around. But our attitude towards some of these things are very poor and very bad. A typical is what we are seeing here, APSS Summit, which should be led by the private sector. Let me ask the question, what are the private sector? What are the people who are really into business? Do they not want to tell me that they didn't hear of this summit? This summit is fully sponsored. But people come in, eat the food, and walk out. All right? Let's call a spade and stop joking. And stop running around the bush. Let's look into our faces and address the issues. All right? Until we look at each other and tell ourselves the truth, Africa will continue. Personally, I'm tired of these articles that, look at the acronyms, AfTA, REX, APSS, you have them all over the continent. And some of them I don't even know. We keep coming up with all these things. When are we going to take action? When are we going to get on the ground and get our hands dirty? And start looking at the continent and say that, this is my continent. I got to do what I need to do. Everything we're looking at the government, they come and go. And listen, they are looking at their interest. They are looking at the next election, how they can win. How they can fill their pockets. So, if this continent is going to overcome its challenges and become those of us in the West, we can tell you that this is the new frontier. Everybody is coming here to take a chunk and go away. What are the people? They don't even see it. Look at the empty chairs here. So, hey, folks, let's look at it and don't let us play around this game and be politically correctness and I don't want to offend somebody. The private sector must set up. I always say to my colleagues, as for me, I do business, I make money. I don't know anything about charity. Okay? God gave us brains so that he can take a break. Let's get down, let's do business, let's charge for services, let people pay, let's put our hands there and do the work and turn Africa around. Other than 20 years, 60 years to come, we will still be in this room and still be talking about this thing. Let's fix our attitude. And if we fix our attitude, we will fix everything. Because our attitude towards everything in Africa is poor. And until we fix that, we can never fix anything. Give a contractor money to do the work. Because the person who gave him the contract is taking 40% out of it. He needs to pay the staff and keep 20%. So he does the road during the night when everybody is sleeping, put junks on the road and run away, write a beautiful report and go and give it to the person who gave him the contract, who endorsed it, give it to the government. Within 1 week, there's potholes on that road. You know what is your attitude? Let's fix it and we'll fix everything about Africa. Thank you.
Mr. Champon, I'm very happy that you are angry, because my children tell me that as I grow older, I'm even getting more angry about Africa. And I thought I was a communist, radical as a young man, but now I speak more like you speak. Maybe I'm getting so tired that change is not going to happen in my time. So we have to be angry. Let me read some countries to you. I'm reading to you the 10 countries according to the order, starting with the topmost one as the number one. In terms of infrastructural growth, the best. Seychelles is number one. Egypt, number two. Libya, number three. South Africa, 4. Mauritius, 5. Tunisia, 6. Morocco, 7. Oh, no, I think I missed it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mauritius is 5. It's Seychelles, Egypt, Libya, South Africa, Mauritius, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, Cape Verde, Botswana. Those are the 10 topmost countries in infrastructural development in Africa. If you look at what they call sub-Saharan Africa, only, which one? Seychelles, South Africa, and Botswana are among them. Is there a reason, Dr. Masalen, why this is the case? I'm not putting you on the spot.
No,
is there a reason why sub-Saharan Africa is not getting it?
I think it's more hysterical. In the northern part or the very western part, it has different type of problems, political and otherwise, than when you go to the southern part and the heart of Africa countries. I think, for many, and especially from the political and colonization, time and so forth. So that's my impression about that point. I will speak about Egypt since I'm Egyptian. I can see that the rapid development now of infrastructure is great. However, maybe it is, as I said, we just talked about harmony between the countries. There is a vision for many, many years about having just a part of that equation, which has a coastal highway between the 4 or 5 countries in North Africa, which is, we have it, but it's not really happening. So in Egypt, they start doing something from the very east, starting from Port Said, where the Suez Canal starts or ends, to all the way to Libya, and then passing through Tunisia. And after the 2011 or so, everything collapsed, and Libya border start to be insecure, and there is militia and stuff. So you can see also, even if you have the money, if you have the will, if you have the plan, some other, issues you cannot control. For example, political issues, turmoil, and the political life in some countries. So you cannot connect the whole network. So you can go from Egypt, being wanted, excuse me, and they spend billions of euros or dollars in the past 4 or 5 years. And that's why in the roads, and because I studied that, I did some analysis for it, to jump or go up from 181 in 4 years to be number 28 worldwide in roads, quality of roads, even above USA. I'm talking about population versus land versus economy. It went to 28. And that's, of course, is not free. and I'm sure Mr. Wendell, he went to Egypt and stuff. This is a painful cure, medication. The people also are suffering out of this. But again, it's just up to the upper management, where they see that you have to have the pain in order to survive. So if you look at it, that's more political. How many government here will upset their citizens, knowing that a little bit of upset, but tomorrow going to be better? It is a compromise. It is very sensitive issue for survival and power. And again, not everybody happy with the president of Egypt right now, right? But I can see, I'm not talking political here, but I can see what he's trying to do. He doesn't really worry too much about they like him or not. He knows that very well. So the decision making, the political issues are very major. And, I agree. We talk about, we have like the Arab League, has no meaning whatsoever. The only condone, or you don't like, or happy, or unhappy. That's what it is. There is really nothing you can see. And so what I'm trying to tell you is, it is, in my opinion, if you want to start something without just waiting forever and you getting angry, I would think you have to do a planning. And instead of thinking about doing a magic, all African continent going to be connected, I don't know how, all the roads, billions of miles to do it. Why don't we start by regional phased project, like the coastal part, the eastern part? We can actually have those as group of private sector African. And you say, Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, or whatever. Let's just start with something. Instead of just trying to choose something we cannot even digest.
Thank you
I
very
think that's
much
a plan.
Yeah, for a very practical suggestion there. And the answer, which you know as well, is that these things are they are agreed. The regional roads, the continental roads are there. Some of the regs will tell you that the agreement has been signed. And like it was said by Mr. Mugnyeyi, the point is that one country will do some, the next country doesn't do, and then the other country will do. So there's no link, because there's a country missing in the middle due to all kinds of reasons. I don't want to get into that. What does it take to bridge these reasons, to overcome them? Well, like I said, we're going to be rounding up, but in rounding up, I also want to invite our women, our ladies here, because it's been all men talking. And I protested when I saw my panel. I told my boss that we were all men, and that if there's a woman or two who would like to say something, I'm going to call on them. So over to you, women. Is there anybody who would like to make a contribution on this subject, whatever it is? I do not see any hands up. It means the women are very satisfied. Please give the women a round of applause. I have a special request from Mr. Wendell. He said he has just one little point he wants to make in closing.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My president from Ghana would like to say something, so I beg your indulgence to have him speak. Thank you.
We can't refuse presidents.
Thank you so much. Yes, it saddens my heart when we want to move as a continent and we have some constraints. In the first place, I want to see our predicament coming from corruptions. That corruption is key in Africa. Are we supporting democracy to our detriment, or there's something good that we are not looking at it? How are governments funded? the political parties, the individuals that found them will have a role to play in the government, and they want to take their money back. So from the word go, they want to recoup their money. How do we fund them? And so when they come into power, I'm very sad if you are saying that you cannot get 1 billion, because I know infrastructure development is key to economic development. And so the moment you have that in mind, that you are putting your infrastructure together, means that you want to develop your country. If you have a port, and you are developing a port, assuming you go for a loan, the port will be there ever since we had our port. We are all benefiting from it. Some have short-term benefits, some have long-term benefits. And so it means that you are going for a loan for 170 billion, and African cannot get it. We have gold, diamonds, we give it out. We have oil, we allow people to come in, get the oil, and we take about 10%. Are we serious as Africans to move ahead? And we claim we don't have money to be doing that. Ever since I grew here, most of the roads have been the same. And I keep on saying that. Is there any opportunity that we give the private sector a role to play in even constructing roads? Look at the highways that we need to connect other countries. Can we give it to the private sector? That look, you can go and look for fun. But then, in terms of the cost, the levies on it, probably the government will sit down with you to discuss it. And so that we look at all the roads networked into the other countries. And we have 5 roads, well-developed roads in our continent to make sure that our vehicles don't break down, to make sure that the accidents are limited, if not even taken, because you can't take it away completely. Are we looking at our human capital base? Like was said yesterday, is that all the courses that the university run that are important to us as Africa? Can we identify our needs and put them on a scale of preference and say that, look, Africa, we're going to do A, B, C, D within the first 3 years? Because it's better you do it well than taking a little bit of it, everything. And so that because we have limited resources, let's put them according to our needs and say that, look, for the entire continent, this is the role we're going to play. We want everybody to look at, let's say, building our ports. We want to look at getting our airlines or railway routes, railway within year 1, 2, 3. It means we are all on course. Are we going to stay away by looking at our individual needs as a country or the continent? And one country will say that because of this, I'm a giant in Africa, I wouldn't want to do A, B, C, D. We cannot do it if we are not together. And that is why we keep on falling back. If we allow ourselves to be taken for granted, it will be a nightmare for us to have the AfCFTA going through. Because people, let me tell you, once we are doing trade among ourselves, it means that we are creating money, we are creating jobs. And so the continent will be very rich. Why do we sit here and at any point in time, you see foreigners coming to Africa to pick up some businesses or perhaps to do business with us? It means that when you look at the growth of the various continents, you see that Africa keeps on growing. It means that we are down there. If you are grown up, you don't grow again. They are already up to the hill. And so we are growing. It means that there are a lot of potentials here. Have we identified it ourselves? And what are we doing among ourselves? We will sit down and then we allow this great thing that has come to us today to pass by. But I think that for us as leaders here, we'll be held responsible into the future. That around that time, we were leaders. What did we do to keep AfCFTA going? And so the private sector, to be honest with you, we have a lot of work to do. If we're able to determine who becomes a governor, what do you call a president in the various countries, then they will have respect for us to know that it is we that make them. When I was here and the Turkey government, the Turkey government was coming to Ghana, it came with about 140 business people at a go in one particular meeting. They were all businessmen. They were not politicians. Ask other countries that there are business forums somewhere. That is when the politicians will send politicians there. When there are even businesses for them to do, they do it themselves. It doesn't go to the businessmen. And so there's something that we are not doing together, like I said. We are not united. And so we need to take it from here and make sure that the private sector is united to take out over our rights and fight for the continent. Thank you so much.
We thank you very, very much, President, for speaking on these subjects. And I can't agree with you more. I think the fundamentals of our political arrangement in the continent is very, very wacky. Somebody said yesterday or day before yesterday that in some parts of the world, when you are running for office, people give you money to run. They contribute money for you. But in our continent, when you are running for office, what do? You give money to your voters so that they can vote for you. So when you give money to voters, what do you do when you get to office?
You ask our children, what work do you want to do? They say they want to be politicians. Not a private businessman. They want to be
why?
politicians.
So that they can...
So they know that's where the money is.
Money is, that's it. That's it. So it is a wrong approach to politics. Because I know one country particularly where I was born, that even for local government election, the amount of money needed, it will take you about 2 years of almost the entire budget coming to you to recover it. So you take the entire budget, you just decide who you don't even pay salaries when you come into office. You decide who will get salaries. Is that politics? No. I think it's something else. It's you know? Broadcasting. And is that leadership? Of course not. So the system is so wrong. And when you are thinking that way, how do you think economically? How do you think financially? How do you think about infrastructure? So I don't want to keep you longer because we can stay here longer. There's so much more to talk about. But ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, I want to thank our panelists. Please. Thank you for making it so interesting, even though it was late in the day and everybody is tired, but you really made it an exciting panel thanks to your knowledge, your experience, and your articulation of the issues. And I then thank everybody for being a wonderful audience, for sitting through this, and for finding it exciting, from the way you clap, from looking at your faces. I didn't see anybody nodding or even sleeping at all. That's very good. I thank you very much and look forward to see you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need to take a picture of the historic moment.